Hola, gente de Cine con Acento, habla Juan Carlos Lemus aquí desde Cannes y me encuentro con el director búlgaro-americano Kostantine Bojanov. Espero haber pronunciado bien su nombre, ya él me corregirá cuando empiece a hablar. Y vamos a hablar acerca de una película que está presentando aquí en el Festival de Cannes, de Shameless. Bueno, the interview have to be in English because Mr. Bojanov doesn't speak very well Spanish, he said. So he's gonna try with my bad English. Okay. Mr. Bojanov, nice to meet you and congratulations for your film here in Cannes.
Thank you very much and good to meet you too.
Okay, perfect. Could you please give me like a resume, little words about how is about your I mean, what's the topic of your film? Or no, not the topic. I forgot the word in English.
En español?
En español es it's not like a resume, but
like a short synopsis, log line.
Yeah. What is the
movie is about a young woman who kills a cop in a brothel in Delhi. Before anyone finds out what has happened, she goes on the run. She arrives in a city in the north of India, changes her name from Muslim to Hindu, and takes temporary shelter in a community of sex workers that is dominated by that is sort of runs mostly in the Hindu tradition of dedicating young girls to a specific goddess, and as a result condemning them to a life of prostitution. And I needed to explain with a couple of words the practice, and there she falls in love with a young 17-year-old girl who still hasn't entered the family line of work, which is sex work. So it is a love story nestled within a crime story.
Right. I feel like echoes about Call Me by Your Name somehow is an adult with a very young person, very young adult, let's say, but quite young, 17 you said, and then it's like this kind of problematic relationship with adults, I mean real adults, and just this moment in your life when you are not a teenager but either an adult. So is one of your points in the film?
The difference in age was a very sort of deliberate choice, and I wanted very much the younger character to be sexually inexperienced, although in reality they push them into sex work when they are 12, 13, when they're literally children. The Devika, the younger of the two characters in the film, hides behind this the facade and the belief that there is something wrong with her. So mental illness is something that is if at all acknowledged, is thought to be embarrassing, and then something that is kind of swept under the rug. And she uses that in order to not to enter the family business. Her sister, who is younger, is already working. The mother is working, and the grandmother is also a former sex worker. And at this age and this fragile character, they meet someone else who represents to her a very, very, very different world, very different attitude. She has never met anyone like that. And I think Devika is very aware of her sexuality, but she has been always repressing these feelings. And now she meets a young woman who is very open about her sexuality, and who to her also represents this she's a rebel. She's someone that clashes with the system and the sort of the draconian rules under which this system operates. And I also didn't want the film to be about sexual lust, but I wanted about two very sort of very different souls coming together. Yes, the and more intimacy than lust and sexuality, and then more, in a way, care, because the protagonist Renuka, she starts her journey in the beginning of the film as someone who is firmly sort of convinced that she has no other moral obligations but to her own self and to her survival, and at the end of the film ends up sacrificing everything to save this young girl.
As you said, that this is the biggest transformation in the film, and then you realize that for the young woman, Danica, for her is I feel something like Renuka is like the way to be. Maybe I have to be a sex worker, but in my own terms. Maybe I'm refusing to grow up. I do something to look younger or maley or whatever, just to avoid the guys around me and postpone this moment till the last. But the attraction between them was my captivate me in that moment. It's like, why? I mean, or how she's engaged, or no?
I mean, the attraction is, I mean, we first the attraction is first and foremost emotional, and then eventually it transitions into an intellectual connection and a mixture of both. But in the case of Devik, of the younger girl, she is attracted more to this persona who is like no one she has ever encountered before, and in a way she like represents freedom that she has never known, and definitely not necessarily that she wants to kind of like emulate her in the way Renuka is forced to make money through sex work, but she has never been able to have like role models outside of, for example, female rappers, because she wants to be a singer. She writes rap lyrics, which also is not something that's easily understood and acceptable within the community. So she does that very much in private, sings by herself, writes these lyrics by herself. And the first one also to encourage her to do that and to tell her that she's good is also Renuka.
One more thing about the thing that the film that you did is about the religion. I mean, it's Hindu, and Renuka, I forgot her name, in Muslim name.
Nadira.
She was Nadira, was Muslim, or she is Muslim, and this tension in India, well, in the world, but in India between Hindus and Muslims is huge. So
especially now, and
Modi war, no?
Yeah, the BJP party has been basically dividing the country along religious fault lines, and it is also why I chose one of the main antagonists in the film to be an aspiring politician for an unnamed Hindu fundamentalist party.
It looks like, no?
Maybe. What is happening in the world politically and also in India is something that greatly interests me. And to be honest, I'm petrified that Trump will most likely win the next elections in the U.S. and what is going to happen to to the country, since I'm also a citizen of that country, and I'm considering going back to live there. So at the same time, I wanted the political and religious elements of the story to be somewhat in the background, and to basically focus on the sort of universal aspects of the story. And essentially, the Shameless is a love story with all these other added layers and elements.
You original from Bulgaria, and then you became a U.S. citizen. So, with all this kind of same situation in USA, I don't know, in Bulgaria, why India?
The project. I mean, my kind of connection to India goes back for like over 20 years, and it began I was driven initially by wanderlust, by wanting to travel. I'm kind of addicted to traveling. I'm trying to kind of curb that. And after my first visit to India, I developed strong interest in the architecture, literature, film. Met people that were involved with the arts and film who to this day are close friends. And the story, I was not. I'm also an artist. I shot a 3-screen video piece in India in 2005. But I was not planning to do anything else there in terms of work. And then I came across a book, a non-fiction book, consists of 9 stories in contemporary India. I optioned the book for a potential adaptation. My idea at the time was a documentary comprising of 4 separate stories that I wanted to cross-reference. And one of these stories was the story of Devadasi, of a sex worker coming from that religious tradition, who was dedicated at the age of 8. The character that I ultimately chose to work with. In 2014, I began work on the documentary. And while we were shooting the documentary, something attracted my attention, which was the close. There's this very touching and relationship of Reshma, who was the main protagonist, and her best friend Renuka. They were both women in their 30s, both sex workers. I don't know, and it doesn't really matter to me if that was an intimate relationship or not. But there was this closeness of two women, and who juxtapose against the background of a like pretty brutal sort of reality, was what kind of sparked the fictional story. Much of the character of the younger of the two protagonists in the film was informed by the real life story of Reshma in the documentary. But the rest is pure fiction. The rest, I kind of imagine, what if a complete outsider, someone who is... With me, the stories always begin with what if. And then what stands in their way. She comes to hide, and falls in love with this young girl from across the street. You might find that maybe a little surprising, but... the film that had the strongest that inspired me and was the strongest reference in terms of the story, the structure and the character arc was Milos Forman's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where again you have a protagonist in a difficult predicament who tries to kind of solve this issue to escape from that predicament and enters into an insular community. In that case, is an insane asylum and rebels against the rules of. So that was the sort of basic dramatic premise for me.
A thing that I found in your previous film, if I remember well, the name, The Light Thereafter, with Kerry Keoghan. I found something similar with this one, which is the loneliness, to be alone in this world, to be young in this world, and then to try to be with someone, not. Is something in your soul that tried to figure it out with that?
It's if there is a reoccurring theme in my films, including the one that I'm preparing to shoot early next year, is the escape from the predicament of the characters, an attempt to escape from their own self, which I guess kind of mirrors mirrors my life in many ways. Although I don't really make autobiographical films, but this now actually what you mentioned about the escape and the desire to find someone else. Now it occurs to me that even in the film that I'm preparing, which is a very unusual heist thriller, the protagonist, who is a woman in her 30s, again, she wants to escape from her predicament and actually escape the life of petty crime by committing an even larger crime. But her kind of ultimate goal is to try to regain custody of her young daughter, who was taken away from her when she was arrested, or shortly after she gave birth to her daughter. So this kind of desire for connection, and I mean it's these things, as much as I try to keep myself out of my stories, these themes are so deeply linked to me that maybe there's no escape.
It's all right. So I mean that's the thing, no? To be an author. And then the usual question: how is to be in the Acento competition?
I mean, honestly, I think that I couldn't have imagined a better sort of platform for the film to start its life in the world. So I'm extremely happy I'm extremely happy to be in Uncertain Regard, and to also be among I'm sure very talented filmmakers, and so. Yeah.
Your second time here in Cannes, right?
Yes, the first time I was here with my first feature, Ave. As I mentioned earlier, I'm also an artist, so I came for my background is in art. So I started making films at least for cinema and audiences relatively late, and that was also a road movie, a story of escape, a story of two unlikely characters also coming together.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Bojanov. I hope the best wishes for you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Okay, bye.